Hello, my name is Jonathan Neumann, and this is the presentation for CRJ 306, Race, Ethnicity, and Crime. The title of my presentation is Supporting and Inspiring Native Youth. As you may have gleaned from that title, the minority youth group that I will be focusing on is Native American. Now, I have a lot of information and not much time to get through it, so I'm just going to zip on through. One of the questions being asked is, what are the issues facing youth today in the system? And I think that is twofold. I think there are two systems at work here. There's one which is the American way of life, which is a system we all know by now. And it has this way of taking minorities and youth and using them as fuel to power the whole thing. And it's just really pitted against minorities and the youth. And I think that is system number one. System number two is the actual juvenile criminal justice system itself, which is the system that we've been studying. However, if there is reform before the juveniles ever reach delinquency and get thrust into this criminal justice system, that is the ideal area for reform, not once they're already in the criminal justice system. So, after studying many cases over the course of the 6 years that I've been in school and going specifically into minority cases, I've come to the conclusion that there are basically four main components that will create the ultimate juvenile delinquent. And those four components are poverty, a failure to succeed in the education system, problems at home, and drug abuse. I think those four things are the main components to creating a juvenile delinquent, especially if the juvenile is a minority. It is just fact that minorities experience more problems in these areas, which lead to crime. So, if there is reform within those four areas, which goes into another question, what is a level of reform that you would recommend? That is one. I think that before the youth ever get to the criminal justice system, they need to have a foundation, which relies on the education system. Now, I'd like to proceed by reading some facts from a 125-page document written specifically for Congress regarding Native American youth. It is called the Native American Youth Involvement in Justice Systems and Information on Grants to Help Address Juvenile Delinquency. The document is generously provided by the GAO, which is the Government Accountability Office, and states within its first 2 pages that more Native American youth were involved in the federal system than their actual percentage in the nationwide population, which is 1.6%, which is insane. So, for example, of all the youth arrested by federal entities during this period, 18% were Native American youth. That's ridiculous. Also, that doesn't include state. That's just on the federal level. And many, when it comes to Native Americans, most of their contact with the law is on a state level. So, to combat this issue, the DOJ and the Department of Health and Human Services offered at least 122 discretionary grants and cooperative agreements from fiscal years 2015 to 2017 that could be used to address the juvenile delinquency problem among Native American youth. This ultimately resulted in $207.7 million going to tribal governments and Native American organizations. So as we can see, the problems facing Native American youth are not just the problems of Native Americans, they're the problems of the government and therefore of ours. So, for the information that follows, I'm going to use a number of sources, but I'll primarily rely on information provided in innovative programs and promising practices, Indian and Native American summer youth employment initiatives, and the 2009 Recovery Act, which is a 66-page book written by Jacqueline Berman and Brandon Coffey Borden. It's a great book about youth employment initiatives for Native Americans, which basically are small groups that are organized to get Native American youth working and keeping them productive. I will also be referring again to the Native American youth involvement in justice systems and information on grants to help address juvenile delinquency, which is the document that I quoted above. And when I'm speaking on the group Mentoring for American Indian and Alaska Native Youth, I will be referencing the National Mentoring Resource Center. The National Mentoring Resource Center it's a center that focuses heavily on the results of this group and similar organizations, especially pertaining to Native Americans. So, now when we get into the Mentoring for American Indian and Alaska Native Youth group, and groups similar, this is just the group that I focused on, but there are other groups that are very similar to it. Studies have shown, studies by the National Mentoring Resource Center, that the youth that attend it do better at school, are in better health, have increased interpersonal strengths such as confidence, leadership, determination, and their social relationships with each other and people outside of their demographic are simply better. They are a well-rounded, productive adult. Generally, the youth who go through these programs develop the skills to be a well-rounded, productive adult. The cool thing about this group and groups like it, but primarily this group again, is that it doesn't whitewash or brainwash the children like a CRJ group where they just get through the grind and then pop out on the other side and we hope they're better now. This group focuses on preserving the diversity and the Native pride, which I think is extremely important, especially when Native Americans have such a low population in the United States now. At 1.6%, that's ridiculous, and I think it needs to be preserved at all costs. So this group helps to do that, which keeps the youth, the Native American youth, proud to be who they are, but also proud to proceed with life without becoming another statistic. Now, at this point, you might be saying, okay, well, provide me with the numbers. What are the numbers? How is this group working? Is it doing well? Is it doing bad? The numbers are not there. Whether they are still being counted up somewhere, whether they're not important, I'm not exactly sure. But even in the document that I quoted at first, the Native American Youth Involvement and Justice Systems document, Congress was told that such numbers simply just do not exist. We do not have the statistics. And that document was put out last year. So I have to say that I do not have solid numbers, simply word of mouth testaments that say that these groups are valuable. And the US government also believes so, since they're putting so much money into them. Now, as part of this assignment, I'm also supposed to bring forth any reform recommendations that I may have. And I kind of already touched on it in the beginning, but I'm going to go further into depth. I believe that the reform starts with the education system. The education system is responsible for laying the foundation for young people, what they will know and what they need to know for the years to come. There is not enough real-life applicable information taught in schools. The importance of labor, the importance of money, the importance of values, the importance of abiding by the law, the importance of a resume, maybe how to file taxes, maybe stronger focus on learning other languages to increase diversity acceptance. All these things need to come forth in the school. There needs to be a greater level of pride that is put into youth. And I think that is a huge level of reform that would drastically lower the amount of minority delinquency. But many of these lessons fall on the parents who are simply struggling to get by with how expensive that life is now, because they are combating system number one, which is the American way of life. They're still trying to feed these mouths. It's hard enough for them, but the level of education or the education system really needs to step in and help these parents out. And I think that is the main reform area. We're out of time. I used all 10 minutes. Thank you for listening. I hope I kind of got somewhere close to what we were supposed to do.